Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's our Friday live chat with Marcia. So let's go. And welcome to Mystery Island Studio, where it is snowing outside, and I love it. This is the first snow of the year, Marcia, and we woke up to it. It was a big surprise. How do you feel?
I think this is the perfect kind of snow because it's only about 2 inches, and so it's pretty, but it still does not prevent life from happening. It doesn't add any extra burden to life.
Not at all. The streets are easy to drive on, and the
Exactly.
temperature is above freezing, and it's just pretty.
Yes, it's very pretty. It's a
Yes.
nice thing to wake up to.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the season too. I like to think of the holiday season positively. You know,
And they say that we're gonna have, some good snow this year, this winter. I shouldn't say this year.
yeah. Hello, George. My guest is none other than Marcia Keith, also known as Mrs. O'Loughlin.
That's right. Good morning.
Yes.
Polly says, "Good morning." Hi, Polly.
If you are joining me on McDuff Lives 1, which has been in YouTube jail for 3 years, I offer you a particular welcome and thank you for still being there. You know, we had that was our biggest channel, and we never got over the first channel. We had almost 12,000 subs, but they took that away. So the second channel is McDuff Lives 1, and we have over 7,000 subscribers at McDuff Lives 1, which is twice what we've got on McDuff Lives 2 and 3, just because, well, that's YouTube for you.
Yeah.
But they promised to let us out of jail, and they let one channel out of jail. I got one. My big channel is still in jail, but I don't want to dwell on the negative. I want to dwell on the positive today. It's like, yeah, um, the holiday season is here, and people should be of good cheer and, sing carols and, hang out.
I don't know how to say this. J Nucleo says, "Good morning, John and Marcia." Good morning, J Nucleo. I hope I'm saying that right.
So
Thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here.
that's what I'm thinking is that some of these names that are not familiar to us are people that I would have remembered, 3, 4 years ago.
Right, right. They've been in jail with McDuff Lives 1.
Yeah.
So welcome all of those who we've missed, and hopefully you've missed us, or actually not us, because I wasn't around 3 years ago. Well, I was around, but not on the show.
Marcia joined me for the first time back in August, I believe, of 2024. And
Has it been that long?
yeah, yeah. And then
Wow.
we started making it regular after a few weeks.
Wow.
People like you, man. They do.
Well, thank you, people.
Yeah.
I like you too.
When I was in Texas for the JFK conference, a couple that came up to me and they said they recognized me because of my hat, my black cowboy style hat.
Yep.
And so they came up to me and they just were raving about our reading of Regicide by Gregory Douglas, the series we put into our Undo the Coup series.
Exactly.
Your voice is just really terrific, and I'm glad to have you reading on our show, as well as just being a personality on Fridays. It's great.
I love this. I love this interaction with some really interesting people out there, people who have interesting thoughts on what's going on in the world and care about what's going on in the world. Your audience is a wonderful group of people, and I'm so grateful for all of you out there who participate in this and who watch and who support and everything. It's been nice being part of this show.
Yeah, see, here's George McDowell. I've been here with George and with John and George Webb. So, that started in 2017, believe it or not.
Wow. And Corky's here. Corky, welcome. Hola, everyone. And every topic I enjoyed got dinged back in the day. Badge of honor giving children running the censorship assessments. Yeah.
Oh, there's a good topic to start with. Um, have you noticed this, Marcia, that Europe, the great European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, all hail Ursula, have decided to fine X for not censoring according to European Union censorship rules.
Okay.
So now they're fining us for speaking out on an American platform under American freedom of speech. And they're saying we're going to shut this down by fining X platform. And, they're trying to force X to go into self-censorship. And I don't know.
The European Union wants X to use European Union standards globally?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other way to do it, but maybe they could do it. But the point is that they don't want to limit the free speech rights of the subscribers of X. And I think that's a great stand. And I think it's going to lead to some type of a battle between Europe and the US, because
I think it is possible to impose different standards. And I'm getting into areas about which I know really nothing, but I do think it is possible because I know that there are certain EU standards also related to Google searches that are different from in the United States, and they're able to treat those platforms or present those platforms differently in different countries. So,
Politico. I'm just reading. I just went to Politico.
Yeah.
EU slaps 120 million euro fine on Elon Musk's X, straining ties with US. US Vice President says EU should not be, quote, attacking American companies over garbage, unquote. Brussels, the European Union today, Commission on Friday imposed 120 million euro fine on Elon Musk. Musk.
Although I like
Musk, the first ever penalty issued under the bloc's flagship content moderation law. The move is likely to inflame tensions with the U.S. over the bloc's digital rules. Okay. While the fine's size is moderate compared to earlier tech penalties issued by Brussels, the U.S. has repeatedly pushed the EU to water down its tech rule books in trade talks. Well, the article goes on, but yeah, I hate censorship so much that if the U.S. wants to fight this one, I'd be for it. I don't care if they can fine tune it to Germany or whatever. No, I don't. If X is American prop, then if they don't want to do it, then I think the country will stand by them.
That makes sense. I mean, somehow China is able to regulate what is and is not on their internet. So if EU wants to do that, they can do that without telling X how to operate.
I just can't face the idea of EU getting away with this. This is so awful. And Great Britain is putting people in jail for saying things like, I support Palestine action.
That's just crazy.
Putting people in jail.
It's crazy.
For months.
There are countries where one would expect that, but you don't expect that in the United Kingdom.
Because they are desperately trying to assert their control over the internet and over what people are able to say. And why would they do that unless they're scared? They're scared of something.
Well, Brightmore says, openly engaging in monopolizing and censoring Americans. How is this legal?
Well, that's the key of, because if it's legal under the EU, then that means the EU is a totalitarian system. And that's what I object to.
And Corky says you can have your more speech, but you'll also have more guardrails. Upshot. Free speech choked.
Mhm.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, well, free speech is becoming less and less available these days. I mean, I can see the argument that somebody would make that X is not the government. So the First Amendment does not apply. And that's the argument that Meta has made many times in their own censorship. But there's a lot of activity that goes on these days where the government is punishing people for speaking out too. So free speech is on thin ice right now. It troubles me a lot. I worry about it every time I see it, that somebody is they lose a job because they speak out, or
Yeah, that was going on all through COVID. You couldn't say anything. And that's why I lost my 12,000 subs channel.
no, I'm talking about in the federal government, people are losing jobs because they speak out. And that to me is very troubling. And that's very different from the private sector preventing people from speaking out.
So you're speaking about the Trump administration?
Yeah, I'm afraid I am. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I wanted to note the change of subject.
Well, it's an expansion of the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Because my point being that when you talk about the First Amendment, that applies to the government. It doesn't necessarily apply to X.
What are people saying that got them fired from the government?
Gosh, you know what? I would have to go back and, there were some petitions that went around saying that, all of the changes that were being made with reducing staff numbers were preventing offices from getting their jobs done. And all the people who signed petitions lost their jobs. Things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Things like that. People are afraid to speak out.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. But, that was all during that big fight where they were trying to just close down the government and let as many people go as they could while they kept it closed.
Well, Corky makes an interesting point. Internet is helping communication expand and evolve. Controllers struggle with freedoms enhanced. We are. I mean, I think that really since the beginning of the internet, we are, and we continue to deal with, to struggle really with this entirely new platform and entirely new methods of communication that does change how we do things, and therefore, how do we regulate it, or do we regulate it? It's difficult.
Yeah. And, in the case of YouTube and Google and all the rest of them in general, this was not corporate policy. This was military direction saying, we are in charge of this and you are not going to allow certain things to be said.
There was a time where the Biden administration acknowledged that they were meeting regularly with Meta and X and all of these platforms to discuss censorship and to determine what and what not should be censored. And everybody seems to have forgotten that and pretend that that never happened.
Good. I mean, thank you for amplifying my point. That's absolutely what happened.
Yep.
Well, let's see what folks in the chat room are talking about.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Brightmore says,
I wanted to say something about Corky's comment since we got a second. Let's remember that the internet comes from military intelligence. It comes from DARPA.
From DARPA, yeah.
And they're still controlling it. There's no way that they're not. And one of the things that they used it for was to generate revolts in companies that they wanted to have a regime change. And that was a secret way that people could, communicate with each other through Facebook messaging, sending,
Mm-hmm.
and remember how they would have, all these crowds would show up. What did they call that? It, your friends would say, oh, we're going to have a meetup, and then 100 people would show up at this corner in the city. You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that at
Well,
all.
that happened. But the idea of generating a possibility for people who are disgruntled with their government to secretly combine together, at least I read, is one of the reasons that they allowed this thing out of the box in the first place, was to allow things like that to happen. And then, of course, they use it for secret communication through codes and
Of course.
yeah. So it really is their baby, I'm sure, in their minds. Whereas you and I, we think we're living in a free country and it's our baby because we vote for these things. But national security, I'm afraid, folks, is the highest trump card.
There was a time that the airwaves belonged to the public, but I think that even went away because the airwaves belong to the corporations now. But, they decided to not apply that same regulation when all this communication online, the new media, when they went hardwired, not broadcast. So, well, I think if they had it to do all over again, they wouldn't give the airwaves to the public. They would say, no, that doesn't belong to you. That belongs to the corporations.
Oh, they snatched it right up with the Federal Communications Act. I think it was 1933, the year they took over just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they just snatched it right up and they said, we are now regulating the airwaves and we're going to have.
Right. But back then they were pretending that they were regulating the airwaves to the benefit of the public, and that all of these companies that use the airwaves to broadcast had to apply for licenses and had to show how they were benefiting the public in order to qualify for those licenses. But I don't think that there really is much concern about the public interest anymore.
No. And I don't think there ever was. I think it was always big money controlling the message.
There's I didn't read the whole thing, but there's a editorial in the Post today about the fact that Trump's shutdown of the Voice of America is now biting him in the butt. I think they used different words, but anyway, it is now a problem for him because Voice of America used to reach so many people in Latin America, and they no longer are broadcasting to Latin America because he shut it down. So now in his efforts to deal with whatever he's doing in Venezuela, he doesn't have that tool anymore. I think it's sort of, the Washington Post's version of na 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 na.
Oh, I can give you the reverse version of that right off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah?
Voice of America is a CIA operation. And if what appears to be what the real diehard Trump MAGA people believe, that Trump is taking them down, and so taking down VOA is taking away their comms. It's just like the Washington Post will paint it like, oh, Trump shot himself in the foot, but I think the big loss is to the CIA because they would be using that for sending signals and communicating with agents and all that stuff. There's so many reports of what's going on in Venezuela. I was just watching one where the Israelis are all over it. It's CIA and Israelis working together that are trying to take down Maduro. It's a story I don't have a particular lot of interest in. I just don't know enough about the situation, right. But I feel sorry for all the people of Venezuela and South America that have been having to go through these horrible deep state takeover operations. Just it's just disgusting, and that's what makes America the Satan.
Right. Well, you know what? We need to get back to the comments before we get too far behind. I was gonna post this one from Brightmore. Germany, UK, France now talking about a possible needs-based conscription to fill the ranks of their military.
Yeah, it's true. Their military has just been terribly. I mean, they don't have hardly any military. I think that they've doubled it from something like 35,000 to 70,000, and now they've got a 10-year plan. I was just watching a show on it yesterday, in which Germany just they don't like military stuff. They don't want to rearm. They don't want to be the baddest dude in Europe anymore. The people don't want to do this.
Right, which is, I guess, maybe part of the reason that everybody's being told, watch out for Russia. They're coming after us next.
And I loved watching Alice Weidel, the leader of AfD, and I watched it in German. I slowed it down and caught most of it. And then I read it in English later to make sure I got it. But she really spelled out a 12-point plan. And one of the things she said is we need to have energy. We need to have energy, and we've got to stop this alternative energy stuff.
And Germany has been a leader in alternative energy, especially solar, which is pretty amazing to me when you consider how far north they are. But for decades, Germany has really focused a lot on solar energy.
Yeah, and she's saying, no, we got to stop doing that. And we've got to have energy to return ourselves to our productive capacity. We're losing all of our businesses, our car building.
So what kind of energy was she advocating? Did she say?
She said exactly what kind of energy. The cheapest energy that we can get. And that comes from Russia.
Got it.
And I said, yay, somebody, and she got an ovation for it.
Wow.
Of course, from her own party, of course. But they have got about a third of the Bundestag right now. And I think they're going to keep on growing as people get more and more frustrated. And, the idea that Europe needs to go to war with Russia, come on,
Well, I think that the agenda isn't necessarily to go to war with Russia, but to make the people think that that's a possibility.
So they'll pay more taxes.
Pay more taxes and, do whatever other bidding, which makes, George McDowell says, the government are crooks. And I like this one too. Well, there we go. There we go. We're entered into a toxic political environment for sure. But haven't we been? I think we have been for quite some time. I might have to ask you. There we go. Brightmore also says, health officials now slowly admitting vaccine errors. Moderna acknowledges vaccine death in a child during trials, but they hid it. Interesting. Well, we have friends whose child had their regular childhood vaccine back in the 90s and began having seizures and became very, very disabled and brain damaged from the seizures and only lived to be 12 years old. And poor child was normal up until the vaccines and had a horrible, horrible reaction to the vaccines. It was heartbreaking. So yeah, there's a lot of this that is not being disclosed. The other thing too, I think there was also a thing in the Post this morning about the fact that all of these former FDA officials are speaking out against new vaccine policies under this administration, but nowhere Nowhere in the article does it mention that all of these former FDA officials have gone back to work for the private sector, including Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and all of these companies that are making all of these vaccines. They don't mention that. They probably worked for those companies first. They became FDA officials and then went back to work for them after they finished their tenure through the revolving door. And nobody mentions that. So that doesn't have a whole lot of credibility for me. All right. Sorry, I'm done with my rant. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, the other side of the vaccines is their continuing weaponization of birds and ticks and mosquitoes and everything else they can do. I mean, the latest article I saw, how they're trying to make H5N1 even more and more contagious and more pathogenic. Why? What the hell do they think they're going to do with it? And nobody can answer that question. There's a lot of stuff hidden behind the curtain here that we can't see. But to me, I think Adam Finnegan in his great book, The Sleeper Agent, has got the message, and everybody else needs to get it too, that there is biological warfare going on and has been going on for over 100 years, and it's biological warfare against humans.
Right.
And it's not, let's just make some anthrax and throw it on the battlefield and kill all the guys. No, it's this kind of creepy strategic weapon that sickens a whole population and makes us weak and makes us dependent.
Let's weaken the people with chronic disease.
And then make them dependent upon the doctors, who have to go to the medical schools and pay all the money and get indebted. And just the whole thing, if you look at it from the slightest bit of skepticism, you don't even have to be cynical to be skeptical. And I think skepticism is in order when we see the horrible health in this country. It's terrible.
We pay more for health care than any industrialized country, but we have the worst outcomes. And that statistic is so real and so provable. And all of these people up there on Capitol Hill are running around going, what are we going to do about healthcare? What are we going to do about healthcare? And they're all focused on how do we manage the cost of healthcare rather than how do we make people healthier so that we don't have to spend so much on healthcare. Right now, we're spending 20% of our spending is on healthcare, and it didn't used to be that way. 1 out of every $5 that we spend is on healthcare. And that's just unnecessary and criminal. But no, they're spending all of this time and money and effort and science on how to make us sicker rather than how to keep us healthy. Corky says, U.S. military recruiting up. I'm not an MIC fan, but today this matters in a good way. I know a number of young men who are now very successful veterans. I'm not sure what MIC refers to.
The military-industrial complex.
Oh, of course. Okay.
And let me throw a shout out to another old friend of ours, Wes McCulloch down in Myrtle Beach, who raised 3 orphan boys, and they all went to military academies, and they all have become very successful in life. And I mean, he did that on his own, and this kind of positive growth that happens in the military, it's a shame to have things tainted, like all the drug scandals at Fort Bragg, and the idea that we are forcing our soldiers to become accessories in the drug trade. This has been exposed, maybe not on the Washington Post, but these kind of things are why we don't want to go. And this goes back to I wanted to mention this, and we were talking about the government is crooks, and the political environment is toxic, right? It all goes back to the JFK assassination.
It does.
It all
Yes.
goes right back
Good.
to there. I mean, I just spent, 4 days studying this, and I've been picking up on the leads that I got and studying these things. You guys, I'm on the computer 10 hours a day working on this stuff.
And trust me, that is true. He absolutely is.
And the one thing that's always stick with me is a graph of people's confidence in the government. In 1963, the people's confidence in the government was like way up here. It was like 80% of the people had confidence in the government. When Kennedy was killed and they failed to investigate it, it went all the way down to like 30%. And a couple of times since then, it's bumped up a little bit, but we have never been back to 80%. And at the same time, our politics has gotten more and more radical and more divisive. This cannot be an accident. This is not just a coincidence. This is a program of demoralization of this country that has been going on for a long time. I would say it's going on in tandem with the biological attacks on us, with the ticks and the mosquitoes and the jabs.
Because look what happened right after that. Not only was Kennedy assassinated, but then we escalated our activity in Southeast Asia, which led to enormous conflict here at home.
And drug addiction, big time in our force soldiers, because they weren't allowed to smoke weed over there, but they were fine if they did some heroin.
So they had not only the drug that are over there with the soldiers, but also the drug culture evolved here in this country as well. And you had all of these young people protesting and doing drugs and, tune in, turn on, drop out, and all of that. It was became, as we all know, the 60s was a very tumultuous time. And all of that happened because JFK was assassinated.
Part of a broader program to assassinate this country. And as Chris Milligan, the great publisher of Trine Day Books, and I met with him over the weekend, when I was in Dallas. And I interviewed him back in 2018. And he told me then, that his father had been CIA. And one day he sat him down and explained to him, he said, the country is going to be taken down with drugs. They're going to import heroin into the country. And this was the early 60s, maybe. So the CIA knows this stuff.
Right.
If they're not behind it, they at least could say something so that we could say, hey, let's not do this. What about let's preserve the future for the future and not destroy every damn thing in this country? Well, we're stuck. We're stuck on stupid because we're stuck at the JFK assassination, because that is the watershed where people started to lose confidence in what the government said and start listening to each other, and then going off into each other's different groups, and then getting manipulated by infiltrators from COINTELPRO. It hasn't stopped, and it's just getting worse and worse until they get that final, you can, will the world end with fire or with ice? That E. Cummings poem. Well, is it going to come totalitarianism through fascism, or is it going to come through communism? It doesn't matter. It's coming.
Corky says, I drop undo the coup, 1963, everywhere that counts. People have responded saying yes. Thank you, Corky. Thank you. That we should all be remembering to do that on a regular basis. Here's a nice comment, John. That lawyer mind never stops.
And that's my good friend, Kevin Timmer, who I've been trying to get on my show since 2017. Kevin, it's great to hear from you. Air America, he mentions Air America rendition flights. I didn't mean to jump ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I was going to say, George McDowell notes, not if you're Black did we trust the government. They have always been against us as a people. That opens a whole lot of interesting discussion as well. So thank you, George, for pointing that out.
I agree with you, George. I agree with
Indeed.
you. I agree with you completely. And the more history that people study, the more obvious it is.
Corky notes, before John's Undo the Coup branding, I was pondering just that. I raised it to friends years back. They would say, that's ancient history. People do not see what ospreys see. Yeah, exactly, Corky, because it's ancient history, but it is very real today.
That's right. And we are the screaming ospreys.
That's right. Now, Kevin mentions Air America rendition flights. You were going to say something about that?
I just mentioned it. That's all. And, we hear about Air America and they deny. They say, no, we didn't. We weren't drug couriers, But on the other hand, they weren't all that careful inspecting the baggage that was being put in the planes, But now he mentions rendition flights, and I'm sorry to hear that. Rendition basically means the guy's going to die.
George McDowell also mentions when Black people said they dropped drugs in our neighborhoods, everyone said we were lying. Yeah, well, ask. Really, I'm totally forgetting the name. Webb, the reporter who tried to report on this.
Yeah,
the one who won a Pulitzer Prize.
Gary Webb.
Gary Webb. Thank you. He won the Pulitzer Prize for reporting on all of the bringing drugs into Black neighborhoods.
Compton, the whole story of Compton,
absolutely.
California. It's just,
and then was shunned.
Exactly. Yeah,
shunned, and then eventually shot himself in the head twice.
No.
Yeah, that's like the magic bullet story.
Yeah, and that's the way they get rid of you, one way or another. Of course, that's what all the biological experimenting is about. Is how can we kill somebody without anybody knowing that we did it?
Right, exactly. All right. Well, now I jumped ahead, so I'm going to go back and make sure that we didn't miss something, because there's a lot of very good. Brightmore says FBI is doing a deep dive into the billion-dollar COVID area fraud involving Somali terrorists in Minnesota. How long before Cash Potato Head talks about Keith Ellison and his Somali terror cell? Yeah, the Somalis are back in the news.
It's quite a story, really. Minnesota, this huge number of Somalis that came over, and yeah, are they involved in gangs? Are they part of the drug problem that we have in this country? Well, I don't know, but there's been a lot of investigation around this idea, and their governor Tim Walz, who's just a very far left, almost lunatic left governor, seems to be fine with whatever's going on there. I saw this morning on my Facebook feed a woman who was the mayor of a town in Maine, wearing the hijab and saying that America needs to pay Somalia. Our job is to take care of Somalia, because Somalia, has been mistreated, and it's America's fault. So my job is to try to get America to send lots of money to Somalia. So that's interesting. This Somali thing in Maine, Somali there, and it's a divisive issue. A lot of people, and believe me, I have dear Muslim friends, and Muslims are just as good of people as anybody in the world. Nobody can tell me otherwise. They are. But there is a lot of radicalization that has been going on, especially under the British Empire, and creating th- these gangs and hateful people. So that doesn't mean that there's not a threat, is all I'm saying.
Well, according to a quick internet search, the U.S. provides substantial foreign aid to Somalia, ranging from over $1 billion in recent years, such as FY24, for security, health, and stability, to significant humanitarian support, which amounts to hundreds of million annually, for food, disaster relief, and resilience. And let's see, what is the source of this? There is an actually wonderful website that tells you that you can go research how much. It's called foreignassistance.gov. So it's a government website, foreignassistance.gov, and it gives great information on how much in foreign assistance we are spending and giving. And, I actually think I'm shocked by how much more we spend in foreign assistance than we spend in other things for Americans.
Now listen to this AI overview. Somalia has one of the world's highest poverty rates, with approximately 2/3 of the population living in multidimensional poverty and nearly 3/4 in severe or near poverty. Okay, so where's that $1 billion? Where is it?
Where is it indeed?
No,
Yes.
this is money laundering.
Yeah.
This is, we're going to give it to the poor people of Somalia, and then somehow it ends up in a campaign contribution in some congressman's pocket.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, from Minnesota
Right.
or Maine. What Kevin had a comment on that too. Oh, as Kevin says, the average Somali income is $637 annually.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh. And here's the other one that Kevin says, I got to highlight this. Columbus, Ohio has the second largest Somali population in the U.S. Columbus, Ohio. My goodness. Columbus, Ohio. What goes on in Columbus, Ohio? Well, we've heard a lot about Columbus, Ohio.
I'm trying to remember. I'm actually sitting here thinking Columbus recently came up in some discussion, and I can't remember what it was. It's, we all think of Columbus as home to the Ohio State University, but I don't know what else goes on there.
A lot has gone on there, and Kevin could tell you, but I'm not going to try because I'm not an expert on it. But Columbus has been the center of a lot of stories about, like the oligarchs and the money laundering. And isn't it Kevin here? He's just Les Wexner. You remember Lex, right? Les Wexner.
Okay.
Yeah. The guy who financed Jeffrey Epstein.
Absolutely. Yeah. The guy who owned the Limited and Victoria's Secret.
Now we're seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't call Les Wexner to mind when you said Columbus, but I didn't. Yeah, Lex Wexner's
That's what it was. Yes.
So there you go. I mean, that connects everything. Drugs, Somalis.
Okay, now my head's going to explode.
Victoria's Secret.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is one of the ones named in Giuffre's book.
Yeah. Marcia read Virginia Giuffre's book. We talked about it last week.
Yep. Corky says, Trump's striking at USAID is trying to cut off one of the heads on the snake.
Yeah. As long as we are willing to accept that Trump is a good guy and has our good old American way at heart, then all of this stuff can actually look good. Like, yeah, he's got to get the drug dealers out of Venezuela because of the drugs that coming in here and killing our people. Well, that's kind of a hard one for me, though, because I know that Les Wexner probably has a lot more to do with the drugs coming into this country than anybody in Venezuela.
That's right. That's right. Brightmore asks an interesting question. How is Israel able to send billions in support to other countries when they rely on the billions from America? And I think that pretty much just, sums up the money laundering scheme. It is really, that's all it is. It's all money laundering schemes and this movement of money around to hide where it's really going.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if President Kennedy had been able to issue his silver certificates backed by the government without the Federal Reserve's participation, none of this would have happened.
Corky says, look up global IQ maps. Thank you, Corky. I'm not sure what that is, but I will. Probably, I'm assuming that's related to the information about foreign aid. Oops. All right, let's.
Let me put in a little advert for my most recent show. It's Undo the Coup number 17. Did it yesterday. It's a short one. It's the compilation of Casey Quinlan's talks about my subject was, I called it LHO was a FED, was a Fed. And, you've heard, he was worked for the CIA or he was a contractor for the FBI, but that didn't really congeal into anything until I listened to this man's speech back in Dallas on the 21st of November. And putting it, I clipped the parts that are specifically about that. And I think everybody should look at this because what he has shown three separate incidences in which the CIA has acknowledged that they hired or controlled Lee Harvey Oswald. They got him when he was a Marine, and they're the ones that sent him to Russia, and they're the ones that brought him back. And this, to me, unless this man is just making this up, he's reading from something. He says he has copies of these documents. And one of them is signed by John McCone, who was the head of the CIA at the time. It just, these documents existed that we weren't allowed to see them until May of 2025, when they were part of the 81,000 document dump. And they were some of the first nuggets that were found. So now we've got proof that Lee Harvey Oswald was a Fed. And so doesn't that show that the whole government knew who he was? I mean, anybody important, Hoover knew who he was, McCone knew who he was, LBJ probably knew, or at least knew somebody that knew who he was. And it just goes right up to the top of the government. And that is the cover-up. That is the coup that we need to undo.
And this is completely consistent with what is in regicide in both the Soviet memo and the DIA interpretation and comments on the Soviet memo. The fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was sent to Japan, and while he was in Japan at a American Marine base in Japan, he was recruited by the Office of Naval Intelligence to defect to Russia, supposedly with some information that had something to do with the U-2 planes, which is why Gary Powers got shot down in Russia. And he stayed there until he decided he wanted to come back. And then he negotiated to come back with the understanding that he would be, both sides. He was going to be a double agent for Russia. He was going to be a double agent for the United States. So all of that involved the CIA and the FBI and everybody else. And he finally was allowed to come back. And the government brought him back and started giving him assignments. He was very, very engaged with the government.
Yeah.
And they were paying attention to him and what he was doing and where he was going.
And the more that this comes out, the more important it is for us to keep talking about it,
Yes.
because they can bury this again. They can bury it all. They can, do the flashy thing on America now and just say, forget that. That didn't happen. Those are not the droids we're looking for. And that's the end of my rant.
Well, let's let Corky rant then. Mine's gone fallow. Mine's gone fallow in great numbers. A forced, learned, helpless state with welfare added. Make no mistake, each human has awesome aptitude. Each human has awesome aptitude. Yes, indeed, Corky, but yet we're not taking advantage of that, and we're not encouraging people to live up to that aptitude. And like you said, we're encouraging people to be dumb and be cheap and be followers.
And I don't know about everybody else, but rap music to me is just dystopian. It's just depressing. I mean, I'm
You know
sure
what else
they
is
say something, meaningful, if you can listen to it. But to me, it's the beat. It's just the rap. To me,
Yes.
it's like something that is geared to taking away our musicality, taking away our love of the beauty in sound.
The other thing that is dystopian that I am starting to see a lot, and it's making me crazy, is the use of zombies in commercials. I don't want to know about zombies. I don't want to look at zombies. I know zombies became very popular there for a while on TV, and I didn't watch any of the zombie TV shows or movies or anything else that's out there about zombies. But now, if I watch TV, which I don't watch a whole lot of, I do more streaming, but if I want to watch Jeopardy or something, like that, I have to see zombies in my commercials running in sneakers and something else. No, I don't want to see zombies. Why am I forced to see these images all the time? What is it that is people think is so appealing about these ugly, nasty images?
And of course, I'm going to go back to the very first zombie movies and say that this is predictive programming. It is them getting our minds ready to see people who have, maybe through mad cow disease or some other way, become unable to think and wander around trying to eat something. And are they setting us up to accept that when it eventually comes as part of their depopulation schemes? Well, I don't know. But it's not that hard to think that way when we give away, when we see all of the deception and other, the pre-programming about, like the movie Contagion, all about the deadly viruses and
That's right.
they do set us up, and the flying monkeys are flying.
All right. Well, I'm going to let our friend George McDowell get a plug in here. I produced an album with my nephews called The Elevation Theory, which is a great rap music album.
Okay.
All right, George. Thank you. And you know what? I'm going to go see what I can find about that and listen to a little bit and experience great rap music.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it too.
Yeah. Now, what is this? Brightmore says Zoomers and Gen Alpha are into
Cosplay. They call it cosplay, which is
costume play.
Yeah.
One of the trademarks of today's cartoon generation. Okay.
Yeah.
Corky says, I discuss musicality with my son. He makes beats like jazz. Some took it up, some said nope. Inside hip hop is a remarkable musicality. but it is in there, not at all. New forms, genre of art are rare. Genres, rather, excuse me. New forms or genres of art are rare.
Well, I'm an old fuddy-duddy when it comes to music, I guess. I just don't listen to pop
You
music.
sound like our parents sounded when we listened to our rock and roll.
Exactly.
In
Yeah.
fact, I remember being in the car and the Rolling Stones, and I don't know what song it was, but the Rolling Stones were playing on the radio. It was one of those rare occasions where my father let me choose the radio station we listened to. And he said, nope, cannot do it. Cannot do it.
No, my dad hated that stuff too. Well, my dad was a classical music guy, and he loves Beethoven, and so that made me. I love Beethoven, and I was super duper into Beethoven as a teenager.
That's so unusual. Of course,
Yeah.
you missed a lot of the 70s and 80s and 90s music.
Yeah, because I was out in an old field playing my fiddle with a bunch of
Old time music
old time
musicians.
musicians. Yeah.
Yeah, traditional stuff.
Yeah, music has got to be part of my life. It's always has been, ever since I was a kid. And I've never been particularly good at any particular instrument or anything. I've been very eclectic, so I never became, that super duper guitarist or the
But you're good at a lot of instruments.
I think I get by. I get by all right.
I was telling somebody just earlier this week, I had lunch with a friend, and it hit me on the way to lunch. I'm listening to the radio, and I tuned into the local radio station that's already started playing Christmas music, and I realized that's really the only thing I love about Christmas is the music. I love Christmas music. And as you know, I've been singing it around the house, and I have my favorite Christmas songs that I like to listen to year after year after year and subject you to them if
I
you
love it.
come into the kitchen.
I am completely persuaded that all this Christmas music is good stuff.
It is. I love Christmas music.
Yeah.
So as long as we have the music, then,
The only one that's been bugging me lately is he knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. And I thought, that's Palantir. I don't want Palantir in my Christmas carols.
Well, you Big Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that, of course, is how parents control their children around Christmas time is, you better be good or Santa Claus is going to leave coal in your stocking.
Yeah.
Though I think it's in Iceland, he doesn't leave coal. Of course, they don't have Santa Claus. They have those 7 weird elves.
Yeah.
Maybe Santa Claus goes to Iceland too. I'm not sure, but they also have those 7 weird elves.
They do.
Who leaves presents hanging on your door. That year that we spent, in fact, it was fun that year that we spent Christmas in Iceland at the hotel. Every night they would leave us a little gift at the door, a little candy or a deck of cards or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, if you're bad, you get a potato. Which
that's not bad.
That's not bad. Yeah, I was going to say, that's not a bad thing, especially if you cook it up for me and serve it with some nice vegan cheese sauce. Well, we are running out of time.
There's a lot of good comments here that I'm seeing. I'm not sure we have time to entertain too much
I
more.
know.
How about you, Marcia?
Well, George McDowell says, thank you for the great plug you gave me. You're very welcome, George. We're so delighted to have you back.
And Kevin always woke up with an orange in our bed. We used to get oranges.
I love that.
Yeah, because it was rare to get oranges sometimes of year, and
yes.
It was always a treat, So we got them in a great big, red apple, and an orange was in our Christmas stocking.
Oh, I would have loved that as a kid because oranges were always my favorite and still among my favorites. In fact, I might go eat one now. Thank you, Kevin. What a great idea. But I think that's a tradition that we need to somehow incorporate. I'm not sure how since we don't have kids, but we'll figure it out.
Monday, we'll have MC Armstrong as a guest in our Undo the Coup series. I met MC Armstrong over the Dallas weekend, but before that, I had a nice exchange with him on Twitter messages in which he was kind enough to ask for a copy of my book, and he read the book and he loves the book. And so that's why I felt I had to go to Dallas to meet him. So he's going to join us and we'll talk about LBJ and the JFK assassination, because he's one of those like Roger Stone that says it was LBJ.
I'm looking forward to that. I heard him speak on a webinar and he's very good. So don't miss it, guys.
Okay. Marcia, thank you very much for joining me again on this Friday.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who joined us today.
And I hope you all get to have some snow sometime between here and the next spring. It's pretty. Bye now.